My name is Diamond Fricks, and I will be going over the anesthesia machine components, the rebreathing system, as well as the non-rebreathing system. But first, I will discuss the rebreathing system. The first part of the rebreathing system is the O2 compressed gas cylinder, which supplies oxygen to the patient. So, as I said, we have our O2 compressed gas cylinder here, which supplies oxygen to the patient, and it has a PSI of 2,200. Then we have our yoke here, which is an attachment piece that makes sure that nothing else can attach to this part of the machine. Then we have our pressure gauge valve, which reduces PSI from 2,200 to 45 PSI, and this equipment is safe for the patient, for the equipment, but not the patient. Then we have our pressure gauge here, or pressure manometer, which shows how much O2 is left in the tank. So then that O2 from the compressed gas cylinder goes in through this green O2 tubing here up to the bottom of this flow meter, which reduces PSI to a safe pressure for the patient. So after we get to the bottom of this flow meter and it reduces the PSI so that it's safe for the patient, it goes in through the vaporizer inlet here and then to the precision vaporizer where the O2 mixes with the inhalant. Afterwards, we go to our vaporizer outlet here, and once we get to our vaporizer outlet, it goes in through this tubing here to the reservoir bag where it holds the O2 inhalant mixture so that the patient can breathe, so that a breath can be given to the patient. Afterwards, it goes into the inhalation valve here, and we have our negative pressure relief valve up here as well, so that it can reduce or make sure that there's no negative pressure before it gets to the patient. So then we have our inhalation valve, as I said, and then we get to our inhalation tubing. And so the tubing connects to the patient for inhalation of the O2 drug mixture. And then it comes down and goes back up, and we get to our exhalation tubing here, and then it goes in through the exhalation tubing through the exhalation valve. And then up here we have our pop-off valve, which should always be up when the patient is connected. And so we get to our scavenge tubing here, which brings air to the F-air canister and goes down into the, as I said, the F-air canister, and that gets rid of, takes waste air out of the mixture, or out of the machine. And so when the patient is exhaling, we then have our CO2 canister here, which gets rid of CO2. So as I had already stated, I explained the CO2 absorber or canister here, which absorbs CO2. So then we'll be looking at our manometer here for centimeters of water, and it cannot get past 20 centimeters of water when the system is on. So now I'll be explaining how to pressure check. First, for pressure checking, you want to turn on the O2 here, and then you want to put your finger at the end of the inspiratory tubing. Afterwards, you want to close down the pop-off valve. Then once the pop-off valve is all the way down, at this point it's not connected to the patient, you want to press the O2 flush, and you want to watch the manometer here get up to 20 centimeters of water, and this should be able to fill the bag all the way. At this point, we're at 20 centimeters of water, so then you want to squeeze the bag a couple of times with seconds in between, and then listen for any hissing sounds at the end of the inspiratory tubing, or at the inspiratory tubing, or with the reservoir bag. And if you don't hear any hissing sounds, that means there's no leaking of the O2. At this point, you can remove your finger from the end of the inspiratory tubing. You can open up the pop-off valve and then get rid of any leftover O2 that may be in the reservoir bag. So after surgery is done, you'll have the pop-off valve up, and you want to turn off the O2, and you want to flush the system and then get rid of that residual O2. So now I'll be explaining the non-rebreathing system for the anesthesia machine. It is essentially the same as the rebreathing system up until the vaporizer outlet portion. So that inhalant O2 mixture comes in through this tubing, which is the inhalation tubing. So the patient is breathing in from here, breathing in the O2 inhalant mixture from here, from this part right here, and then what they exhale comes in through here. The reservoir bag here holds onto any inhalant O2 residual mixture, and then any residual will come in through this blue scavenge tubing out through the air canister right at the bottom. And then, as I said, regardless of which pop-off valve is in use, whether it's this pop-off valve for rebreathing or the pop-off valve for non-rebreathing, which is here, non-rebreathing, it should always be open when the patient is hooked up to the machine. Now I'll be showing you how to pressure check for the non-rebreathing system. So you want to make sure the pop-off valve, which is here, is closed for pressure checking. And you want to make sure the O2 is on. So then you'll want to put your finger here at the end of this tubing, and you'll want to press the O2 flush to fill the bag. So you keep your finger here, and you want to squeeze the bag to listen for any hissing. If there isn't any hissing, that means there are no leaks. At this point, you can remove your finger, open up this pop-off valve, and open up this pop-off valve. And then so at this point, once surgery is over, you can turn off the O2, and you can press the O2 flush here, and you want to continue doing this until you hear zero amount of O2 coming through. And then just squeeze out any extra leftover O2 that may be in the reservoir bag.